Hi, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Biotech Research Club. We're very excited to have Ms. Nandita Damaraju with us. She graduated with a BTech in Biotechnology from IIT Madras in 2014 and is a very active member of the department and of the iGEM team of our department. She's currently a machine learning scientist at Inflammatix Inc. in San Francisco. She's previously worked at Thermo Fisher Scientific as a data scientist and has a master's degree in computational science and engineering from the Georgia Institute of Technology. We're very excited to have her here with us. Over to you, Nandita.
Thank you so much for having me. Let me just share my screen and start. Can you guys see my screen? I'm going to take that as a yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. Just to tell you a little bit more about myself, I'm Nandita Damaraju. I've been working at the intersection of computational science and life science for a little over 5 years now. I'm currently a machine learning scientist at Inflammatix, where I work on improving diagnostics for infectious diseases. And prior to that, I was a data scientist at Thermo Fisher Scientific, where I worked on improving the efficiency of our genetic sequencers. I have a master's in CSE from Georgia Tech and a bachelor's in Biotech from INSTI. And I've been enthusiastic about exploring the intersection of these two very exciting fields for a while. My 4 years at IITM were very memorable and very instrumental in shaping my career choices and my life. So I'm really grateful for this opportunity to share my experience with you. So just to give you a brief overview of the agenda, I'll be going into the evolution of data science in biotech over the last couple of years and talk about how opportunities in academia differ from opportunities in the industry. I'll also go into some of my past and current projects that help me sort of chart my career trajectory and connect the dots. I'll go into some of the skills and knowledge required to pursue a career in data science and biotech. And then I'll talk about how data science in biotech differs from data science in other fields. And then just close with a brief summary. So what exactly is data science? I'm sure most of you know what it is. All of you know what it is. It's basically just extracting meaningful insights from data. And anything that falls into this broad definition is data science. But when you hear the term data science or data scientist, it's probably one of these data science roles at tech companies or startups that come to mind. And many students aspire to work in a data science role at one of these companies. And unsurprisingly so, because data science has unquestionably made some phenomenal developments possible in the tech industry, like in social networking, e-commerce, entertainment, so much more. But data science methods are not limited to machine learning, and data science applications are not limited to the tech industry. So when you focus on the tech industry only, you exclude an enormous number of really cool applications in other sectors. And one of the sectors that has seen a huge influx of data and data science applications recently is biotech. So my hope today is to give you a brief overview into this very exciting intersection of data science and biotech and all the plethora of wonderful opportunities that exist. So data science in biotech has actually come a long way in the last decade. When I started my undergrad in biotech in 2010, the term data science was not very common, let alone data science in biotech. So back then, I actually never realized how interdisciplinary biotech was as a major, let alone combining biology with math or CS. However, all the wonderful courses that I took as a part of my curriculum helped me gain a really good foundation in the basics of biology, like mol bio, cell bio, genetics, immunology, etc. And all the math and CS courses helped me get a really good hold of all the analytical techniques. And then finally, there were courses that combined the two, like systems bio and bioinformatics, which I'm sure you all are familiar with. And I'm sure there are a lot more courses now at the intersection of these two fields in INSTI than there were a decade ago. But I quickly realized in INSTI that this intersection is where my interests lay. And I pursued a lot of projects at the intersection of these two fields. So some of them involved applying, graph theory principles to protein networks to derive novel insights. And some of them involved time series modeling to understand how circadian rhythm works in organisms. And all of these projects are basically data science. But what makes this flavor of data science different from the data science today is the increasing volume of data and data sources and the simultaneous development of techniques to handle these really large, messy data sets. A lot of institutions realize the potential that lies at the intersection of these two fields. Hence, data science prospects in biotech have seen an explosion. So here are some of the applications of data science in the life sciences. The amount of genomic data has exponentially increased over the years and has led to many breakthroughs in therapeutics and in diagnostics. So doctors can now sequence a patient's tumor to identify the best course of treatment. A pregnant woman can check for chromosomal aberrations in her fetus without any invasive procedures. Patients can now know in advance if a drug is likely to benefit them or be unsafe for them based on their genetic sequence. There's a lot of many other promising applications that are currently being researched as well. And then there's EHR data, or electronic health record data, which is basically an electronic version of a patient's medical history. So some of you might remember carrying a file like this to a doctor's visit not too long ago. And those paper health records would be stored in large warehouses that look like this. However, over the past few years, more and more providers are adopting electronic health records, and large warehouses are now being replaced by compact servers. And this has made it easier to access and share all sorts of information about diagnosis, medications, treatment plans, immunization dates, allergies, radiology images, and lab results. So in addition to EHR data, there's also claims data, which is available in public and private data sets. And these databases collect information about doctors' appointments, bills, and other insurance information. A lot of providers are beginning to recognize the value of this data to send personalized warnings, minimize unnecessary procedures, and reduce healthcare costs. There's also been an increase in the adoption of wearables and home monitors, resulting in yet another rich source of data at the level of individuals. The data from these devices are being used to notify users of everything from sleeping habits, UV exposure, irregular heartbeats, to just general fitness. And data collection and infrastructure is improving not only at an individual level, but also at a global population level. So large interlinked population health databases around the world have made it very easy to quantify health loss from hundreds of diseases. So these databases are also being leveraged to predict and track the spread of epidemics, which is more pertinent today than ever. I'm sure all of you have seen articles on COVID about bending the curve, predicting hospitalization rates, prevalence, and so much more. Some of you have been tracking these numbers very closely, or some of you might have actually used some of this publicly available data to draw your own inferences and predictions. This has largely been made possible because of improved population health data infrastructure at many levels. And these are just a few examples, and it's by no means an exhaustive list. It doesn't end here. These modalities could be combined with each other and with existing data sets from other domains to generate really novel insights. The possibilities are endless, and that's why there's a growing interest in applying data science to healthcare. I'll go into detail about what some of these prospects look like and try to weave in the context of my own experiences to give you a glimpse of what it really does mean to be a data scientist in biotech. To switch gears, I'm sure most of you probably asked yourself this question while considering options after graduation. And you'll probably ask yourself this question again and again and again, several times in your life. I still ask myself this question and consult my mentors every time I still think I should do a PhD. But right after undergrad, though, it was a no-brainer for me. I absolutely 100% wanted to study more and pursue the academic life. So back in 2013, when I applied to grad programs, there were very few bioinformatics, computational biology programs out there. So I applied to about 10 programs, and only one of them was a bioinformatics program at Georgia Tech, which ironically was the only one that I got into. But now that's not the case anymore. There are institutes all over the world that have opened up entire departments to combine data science and biotech. So the opportunities in academia are plenty. I'm going to briefly talk about what it was like to pursue data science in biology at Georgia Tech. So I got into the MS Bioinformatics program at Georgia Tech and was supremely excited to learn about all these cool technologies that were buzzwords at the time, like next-gen sequencing, RNA-seq data analysis, variant calling, gene set enrichment analysis. So I took courses like applied bioinformatics and computational genomics to learn more. I got to do some really cool projects like analyzing a person's genome and identifying genetic variants that could be harmful, and assemble genomes of unknown microbes to figure out how infectious they could be, and many more such fascinating projects. But I felt like these courses lacked the math and computational rigor that I was looking for. So I moved to the Department of Computational Science and Engineering at Georgia Tech. And the courses absolutely went up a notch since I had to put in a lot more effort to be comfortable with that level of coding, machine learning, and stats required just in the span of one semester. I got to work on some basic data science projects, such as classifying images into cats and dogs, predicting house prices, and many other simple Kaggle competitions. A team of us also ended up doing this really super cool project to identify optimal locations for fire stations using clustering algorithms to predict the quickest response time from firefighters. We got the opportunity to present this project at many amazing conferences like KDD in Australia and Data for Good in New York. I couldn't believe that all it took was just one semester to go from being intimidated by machine learning and statistics to successfully participating and scoring in Kaggle competitions, and then coming up with approaches worthy of being presented at conferences. But even though I loved learning about all these new methods and applying them to very innovative contexts, I missed applying them to biology. So Georgia Tech and most other schools in the US actually allow you to design your own curriculum. So in the final semester, I took courses like Big Data for Healthcare, Applied Deep Learning, Biostatistics, and Introduction to Health Informatics. These were not the traditional bioinformatics courses, but at the same time, they also leveraged advanced computational techniques in the context of healthcare. I also did some really interesting projects that applied big data and analytics to EHR data to predict septic shock onset and classify images of melanomas using images molds from using deep learning techniques. I then started to look for career opportunities for a computational science grad, and most of them are in tech, and they required a very good understanding of CS and advanced data science methods, which seemed beyond my reach. And then I came across this quote that I really resonated with. The best minds of my generations are thinking about how to make people click ads, and that sucks. It was an absolute coincidence that the author of this quote, Jeff Hambacher, was setting up a genomic data science lab at Mount Sinai in New York. So I reached out and asked if I could just intern with him. And I got this really super cool opportunity to design cancer vaccines using deep learning. So here's an example of how a data science project looks like in the academia. So the goal of this project was to create personalized cancer vaccines using deep learning. So adaptive, just to give you a brief overview of how this works, adaptive immunity, if you recall your immunology lectures, depends on how well T cells bind, T cells recognize the peptides bound to the MHC molecules. So the stronger this bind, the stronger the immune response, which can help cure many diseases. So what we wanted to do was to predict this binding strength between the peptides and the MHC molecules and identify the strongest binding peptides. So we did so by using publicly available data that had the sequence of the peptide, the sequence of the allele, and the strength that was measured by mass spec. We then fed all of this into a neural network and obtained an ensemble of models to predict the binding strength. I got to work on a small part of this project where I tried several different deep learning approaches and data augmentation techniques to improve the accuracy of our models. So this wasn't a new approach, but deep learning enables scientists to iterate through tens of thousands of peptides to identify top-performing peptides. This idea wasn't really feasible prior to the intervention of deep learning because it's absolutely impossible to test all combinations of peptides and quickly identify the top performers using molecular assays within a reasonable timeline. I was actually amazed to see how data science reduced years of bench science to a matter of a few seconds. After a very exciting internship in academia, I was starting to consider options after graduation and asked myself this question again. This time around, I compared the two head-to-head. So by talking to people in industry and academia and spending hours on the internet, I realized that in industry, the problems are practical and real world and are defined by parameters such as the goals of the company. The iterations are a lot quicker in the industry, and working in the industry also involves adhering to a defined structure in terms of projects and schedules. The compensation in the industry also tends to be a little better than academia. But at the same time, I absolutely love the freedom to choose problems to work on in academia, the specialized knowledge that you gain in a particular field, the intellectually stimulating environment that one gets to be in, the flexible work hours, so where I could come in at 11 a.m., and then leave at like 9 p.m., which is not possible in a corporate setting. And finally, the exciting cutting-edge science that I got to work on. But I ended up choosing industry because I personally wanted a little more structure and organization. And I was very keen on remaining within the biotech industry and working on the computational side of things. But there were barely any data science roles in biotech in 2016. I was, however, very lucky to get an opportunity to work as one at Thermo Fisher Scientific in a very beautiful city. So Thermo Fisher is a company that manufactures scientific instruments, reagents, and consumables used in labs. And lab work can often be very repetitive and labor-intensive. So my role at Thermo Fisher was primarily responsible for cleaning and curating raw lab data and prototyping algorithms that use this data to improve the efficiency of genetic sequencers. So for example, one of the projects that I worked on was to improve the generation of quality control flags, which dictate how good or bad your data is. So users would typically rely on a lot of manual curation and heuristics to do this, which can be cumbersome and even biased. So some of these automated pipelines and algorithms would help reduce these efforts. So even though Thermo Fisher was a very large company, I still got the opportunity to see my very tiny efforts end up in a sequencing instrument and improve the experience for researchers around the world. And while it was very exciting to augment the very instruments that generate these large amounts of data, after a while, I wanted to transition to a role that leveraged these large data sets and work on something that was a little more translational, that addressed immediate unmet clinical needs and used advanced data science or machine learning. So I began looking for opportunities again, and I asked myself this question again. But at this time, I decided to stick with industry because I saw a plethora of really very interesting opportunities. And I saw titles like data scientist, ML engineer, and ML scientist a lot more this time around in the biotech space. And they all seem to be a good fit for someone with computational skills and a background in biology. So here are some sample job descriptions for a few of these roles. As you'll notice, a lot of these roles sounded deceptively similar to each other. And I was unsure about what role was a good fit for me, my skills, and my goals. And I eventually ended up applying to a lot of these positions. And many rounds of interviews helped me understand the subtle differences and the common aspects in these roles. So some of the core skills that most of these roles require is a proficiency in a language like R, Python, or Bash, a basic knowledge of biology and stats, good visualization tools and to communicate results effectively, good coding and software practices, especially in the more coding-intensive roles, a deep knowledge of ML algorithms, depend if you're applying for machine learning or data science roles, SQL, Pandas, and R for data munging, if you're applying for data engineering roles or bioinformatics roles, BLAST, Galaxy, and SAM tools if you're working with omics technologies, and expertise in advanced techniques such as ATAC-seq, HiSeq, CAR-seq, etc. for more specialized roles. So I realized that some of these roles required an expertise in statistics. Some of them required a high level of proficiency with genomic data analysis. Some of them required a deep understanding of ML methods, and some of them were solely just looking for strong software engineering skills. Some roles also required you to be able to do a little bit of everything. And these interviews helped me figure out whether the company and I were on the same page with respect to the job description. I also learned through these interviews that a lot of these roles are very loosely defined. So a computational biologist at one company could have very similar responsibilities to a machine learning scientist at another company. And machine learning itself could mean very different things at different places or even within the same company. Today, there are a lot of avenues to acquire the required skills, depending on how rigorous you want to be. So here's how one would go about gaining these skills in an increasing order of difficulty. I personally started taking online courses to hone my skills for the job descriptions that I was interested in. I also ended up doing a few professional certificate courses at Stanford, and they greatly helped me realize which flavor of data science was interesting and also helped me acquire the skills for that role. In addition to these courses, I participated in a lot of hackathons across domains, attended workshops and conferences, meetups, and a lot of other events. These career development opportunities also involved a lot of rejections, which in hindsight were instrumental in ultimately helping me find the right fit at my current role as a machine learning scientist at Inflammatix. So at Inflammatix, we work on developing rapid tests that read the immune system to diagnose infectious diseases. The idea is that the immune system recognizes a pathogen almost instantaneously as compared to the molecular techniques that are used to identify them. So by reading the immune system, instead of trying to identify the pathogen, one can quickly diagnose the infection. The machine learning team here at Inflammatix specifically uses measurements of mRNA in the blood and builds machine learning classifiers to classify diseases like sepsis, tuberculosis, and malaria. So my day-to-day involves a mix of machine learning, software engineering, and scientific communication. The machine learning part involves prototyping machine learning models to improve classification accuracy, designing new metrics to evaluate our classifiers, and the software engineering part involves productionizing successful machine learning approaches and writing regression and unit tests accordingly, followed by documentation and logging, and communicating findings through presentation, abstracts, and manuscripts. In addition to the computational side, through this role, I also continue to learn about the biology of the immune system and how it responds to various infections, the various lab methods that are used to generate our data, as well as all the regulatory and clinical aspects that are involved in our pipeline. And as I learned about these various roles and transitioned from one role to another, I realized a few things. That these roles are very loosely defined, vary from company to company in their exact day-to-day. And this makes it very easy to move from one kind of role to another with the right skills. The ease of transition also makes this intersection of data science and biology a very exciting place to be. However, it's easy to get caught up in the hype and promise that surrounds these exciting opportunities and ignore some of the very real challenges that accompany them. So here are some practical considerations that make data science in biotech different from data science in other fields. So the first step in any data science application is to obtain data. And this comes with its own set of challenges in the healthcare space. Unlike other domains, health data is protected by stringent privacy and confidentiality laws, which make it hard to share and scale any models that use this data without the appropriate considerations. So despite the massive amounts of data being generated today, finding high-quality data sources in healthcare can still be difficult. This is because health data is often fragmented and distributed across sources, and the methods that are used to generate them are varied. So even people within the same subfield disagree over terminology. So more often than not, the size of data sets that people end up working with tend to be rather small. And increasing the size of relevant data sets through experiments and sample collection is also very expensive, as data points require a lot of specialized skills and resources to generate, unlike social media or image data. And these different methods and complex terminologies also make it very hard to label health data for predictive analytics. Annotating these data sets often require a very high level of domain expertise, like skilled radiologists for imaging data, or trained physicians for EHR data. And this level of expertise is rare, expensive, and time-consuming. Automated labeling methods are being explored as proxies for human annotated gold standards, but they risk the possibility of being inaccurate or biased. And then there's biases that are introduced due to suboptimal sampling, measurement errors, or lack of heterogeneity. So for example, when studies sample from overwhelmingly Caucasian populations, they may not adequately assess the risk factors for some minority groups. Such statistical biases can also lead to social biases, which could lead to suboptimal health outcomes for a particular demographic. We're all familiar with implicit biases in tech and how algorithms can perpetuate them. There can be a similar issue and with much more severe consequences in health data, where potentially life-saving treatment is delayed or unnecessary procedures are recommended. Hidden biases, small data sizes, and lack of thorough validation on external data sets could also lead to poor generalization. And these challenges, coupled with the black box nature of ML methods, also make it very hard to deploy algorithms, resulting in a lack of trust. The margin for error is very low, or false predictions is very low, because it could result in adverse outcomes for a patient. And in addition to all of these considerations, data science in healthcare is also not immune to common machine learning challenges faced in other domains, such as overfitting and underfitting. These challenges, however, are very tractable, and lots of research is being done specifically to address them. These challenges themselves create a wide array of opportunities that make the intersection of data science and healthcare a very exciting field. So finally, to conclude, there's no dearth of opportunities at the intersection of these two fields. But the best thing about these opportunities is that the barrier for entry for all kinds of people is quite low. So people with advanced degrees in biological sciences can easily gain computational skills using a plethora of resources, such as online courses and boot camps, to make huge strides with their valuable expertise. And software engineers and data scientists with no background in biology who are interested in applying their skills to healthcare can easily transition into the field as well by learning the required domain knowledge on the go. This is not uncommon at all. And a lot of my colleagues, mentors, and supervisors in the field have had little to no formal training in biology and came from very diverse backgrounds, such as applied physics, chemical engineering, math, and computer science. There's also a lot of positions at the entry level for recent graduates or folks looking to transition from other domains that require only basic computer science skills and enthusiasm. So in addition to being a technically challenging and exciting area, working at the intersection of data science and biotech is a very rewarding experience. So in addition to the breadth of opportunities, highly transferable skills, and a good living, by working in the life sciences, you're ultimately playing a small part in helping people or even entire communities and positively affect their lives as a result. So I hope this motivates you to explore more opportunities at the intersection of these two very exciting fields. Please feel free to reach out to me with any questions you might have. Thank you once again for this opportunity.
Hey, Nandita, that was an excellent talk. So I'll first let the students ask a few questions and I'll hold back to the
talk. It was really nice to hear about your own experiences from transitioning to academia, industry, and the sort of thought process that went behind that. We'll stop the recording now and move into the second part of our session, which is an informal discussion. If people have questions, feel free to